All right, we're here. We're working it out. We're here. It's all happening. Is that check it? Check. It's working.
Even outside, it's packed.
All right. All right, everybody. Hit that like so we can get started. Sorry I'm late. I had to get coffee for my girl. You know how it is. Oh, sorry. You caught me dancing again. It happens. It's Friday. And for some people, it's the end of their work week or the semi-end if they have to work a Saturday half shift or something like that. Or perhaps, you have a staggered shifts, something like that. Maybe you're in deep shift right now. Who am I to even know? But I will say that normally this is the beginning of my work week in a lot of ways. And lately that has accelerated. Tomorrow, of course, Nerd Halen is playing in LA for LA Kings Fest for the hockey team. Very excited to combine music and nerddom and hockey. It makes no sense. This is I feel like we're going to perform tomorrow, and people are going to go like, I didn't know the Hanson brothers had a band. That's what I'm concerned. That's my biggest concern right now. That and hi chat room. How are you? Hi. Does a Saturday night gig still count as work if it doesn't feel like a job? Yes. Because I can be excited and happy about my work, but there's still elements of my work that require focus, concentration, and can do damage if I don't do it well. Singing being one of those things that if I don't manage my instrument, I can limit my career. So even if you love it, that's the part that makes it a job. Does that make sense? Every time a singer performs, there is the potential always for a career-shortening injury. Sorry, I was reading something. The Biden campaign will be reminding people that the special counsel was Trump appointed. Her is not a doctor. He's a lawyer. He doesn't actually have the authority to say those things about the president. Yeah, he's being a dick. But I also think he was just running interference for Trump. Like a lawyer her, whatever. Special counsel her. You lost your cupcake. Oh dear. That's unheard of. Also, I'm sorry I'm not on Instagram this morning. For whatever reason, it was like being a dick. It just did not want to load. I don't understand. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes not. Just I can fiddle and fuss with it a ton, but aggravating. All right. It's Friday, welcome to the show. How are you? Like, subscribe, hit the thing, and do the stuff and the bits and the super chats and the things that I always forget to ask for. And since it's Friday, I thought I'd bring up something right out of the gate that kind of combines two aspects of my kind of offline, online world. The stuff that I, on my own, beyond politics and all that kind of stuff that I'm fixated on and fascinated by. And that, of course, is the rise of AI and the impact it's going to have on our lives, which is enormous and I think equal to the printing press. And on the other side of that, the Chinese economy. And one of the companies that has really been making huge headway when it comes to AI particularly is Nvidia. And one of the reasons is because their Nvidia video cards, because the calculations necessary for like video games and sort of three-dimensional spacing and physics and all the other stuff that's in modern gaming, they have been like gamers. It used to be, remember how it used to be that like porn decided the VHS beta decision. There was so much about like technology that was available that if you could deliver erotica or pornography with it, that was the side that would win, right? That was whatever side porn put its thumb on the scale, that's the technology that leapt ahead, right? Yeah. Now it's AI. AI is, or gamers, I would argue. Gamers are the ones that like required so much of their computers to increasingly elevate the impact that Nvidia and other, video card makers, specifically GPUs, graphics processing units, as opposed to a CPU, which is a central processing unit. That's the computer part of your computer. GPU being the graphics part of your computer, became so important that they were literally separate parts with equal amounts, in some cases, of RAM, equal amounts of processing power. And then the video just kind of leapt ahead of it. Because if you could offload a shit ton of your graphics that you had to do onto the card, you didn't even need the RAM on your CPU to do the graphics part. It could stick to calculating and doing all kinds of stuff. So one of the things that the gamer cards made huge headway in was the solving of the equations that were necessary in crypto mining. So if you looked around the world during the kind of peak of Bitcoin and all that shit, was these server farms with a shit ton of these graphics cards that they were using to do the calculations to mine for Bitcoin, because they were the fastest processors available in a lot of ways, and they were cheaper than a stack of motherboards, and you could put 3 in a machine. Sometimes you could hook up another like GPU holder, and you could add 3 more, and so it was incredibly energy intensive, incredibly hot for one. Some of these motherfuckers had to submerge their computers in water to just keep them from cooking, right? Well, that died because crypto is really only for criminals. Crypto is for criminals. You heard it here, folks. Let's just state it out in the open. Crypto is for criminals. That's what it's for. It's for human trafficking, drugs, and weapons. It's the terrorist currency of choice. It is effectively like the terrorist Amex card is crypto. That's what it's for. It's to hide it from civilized society and the normal systems of exchange, where people are like, I would rather you not sell people using our money. And if you care about that kind of shit, and you have an ethic about it, and you set rules about it, then you are the enemy of crypto, and you are a tyrannical government that doesn't allow freedom. So crypto went through this huge arc, and where it was like, oh, maybe it'll be a generally accepted currency, and then everybody went, nah, it's really just for criminals. It's really just drugs and human trafficking and weapons for terrorists. That's pretty much what it's for, and what little money you can make on it might be in the greater fool category, where you could, where an investment it's worth shit, but you hope at some point you will be selling it to an idiot who's willing to pay more for it than the idiot that you were when you bought it from the other guy who was hoping another idiot would come along, which is like shit. Real estate goes that way. Same thing is true of crypto. And they're like, man, if I could just get this up enough where people think it's going to rise, and I get out, and then they buy it, and maybe they'll ride it a little further, but then it takes a shit, and then I'll buy more of it, and then some dumb fuck will buy more of it, and I can shave that cycle, right, over and over and over again. Just like take my winnings and sell it again, take my winnings and sell it again. It's just like printing idiot money. So that's what crypto became. But the idea of like mining it yourself and all the energy that it took and all that kind of stuff, there was a period where the benefit outweighed the cost. That's not true anymore. And so what you had was, and this, interestingly enough, might have been that the failure of crypto in many ways spurred and the rise, I guess, of the underlying technology of crypto, the kind of like the idea that there would be a categoric base for all kinds of ownership and other shit and records and that kind of the underlying nature of crypto beyond the currency part of it might actually have a value to it, but it's pretty bureaucratic, really. It's not going to make you a shit ton of money. That you might need a little bit of that, but not nearly all these fucking video card farms that they have everywhere calculating all this shit. So it started to take a shit. But that meant that a lot of these cards were moving from the calculation capability of doing video, which is very intensive, to the calculation capability of doing crypto, which is equally intensive but different functional use. And yet at the same time, you have companies like Nvidia and AMD and all these making these video cards, where those cards themselves, and I know is boring the fuck out of some people, but it's truly important to what I'm about to say, that those cards had to be able to do both. They couldn't just go, oh, nobody wants video cards anymore. We'll make these crypto cards. It didn't work out that way. They still had to sell them as video cards with this sort of secondary use. So the video cards got better and better and better at calculating this kind of stuff, and got faster and got cooler and all that kind of shit. Okay. Nvidia is the company that leapt ahead of everybody else and really focused on this parallel of video game cards and AI. And instead of having these crypto farms, they became the AI card of choice. And really planted their flag in that shit last year, okay? And I just wanted, and all the while, there's been some talk about like China is going to overcome the U.S. economy. China is technologically so advanced. China is outpacing us in military and all this other stuff, which, for the record, just put it aside, is horseshit. It's all copycat nonsense. So let's just put that in another category. But as I have been telling you for this whole time, the Chinese economy for the last 15 years has been a myth. And it's just now catching up to people that, oh, fuck, it's a myth. And you know, and I've shown you many articles over the last couple of months that I was talking to you guys and boring the shit out of you about this 2 years ago. And everybody's like, no, China, eat our lunch, blah, blah, blah. And then what happened? Yeah. China's entire economy is eating shit. They've lost $3 trillion in their stock market, $6 trillion in total in their GDP. The idea that they had an $18 trillion GDP in the first place was bullshit. It's probably below Japan. It's terrible. The whole country is Temu right now. It's a fucking fire sale. And this is the part where these two ideas come together. If I may, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of the biggest, I guess, Schadenfreude articles in terms of what I have been telling you over the last fucking year and change. Nvidia's now worth as much as the entire Chinese stock market. Yeah. Nvidia, one company that makes video game cards, essentially, who transitioned into AI, and their technology, the Biden administration rolled in and said, you can't sell that shit to China, past a certain generation, past a certain chip density. I think it's like 7 nanometers is the baseline for that. And they're operating at like 4, I think physics limits you at 2, but they're pretty rock solid at 4. Never mind the fact that China will never catch up with AI because other than the stuff that they use it to just track their own people, it's never going to be commercial AI, which is the part that it has its, as far as elevating people's fucking lives, is the crucial part. China will be making huge advances in AI for the tracking and categorizing and I guess ghettoizing of their population. But insofar as like the average user being able to do shit and create their own company and calculate a bunch of stuff and make their own, be helped with software creation and that kind of stuff, forget it, because there's no purpose. The CCP has no value. There's no value for them in that. And I don't know how to state this. Let me say this as cleanly and as directly as I can. 15 years ago, there were government companies in China. They were government-run organizations that were pretending to be private. And then there were private companies, and then there were these bridge companies, which were companies that were basically, they looked like they were private, but they had a lot of back-end kind of relation to the government. Think Raytheon or Boeing or something like that in theory as far as that bridge. Now, there's no such fucking thing. The only private companies that exist are on the fucking like corner store level, and even they have to pay so much homage to the CCP as far as product and what they can ship around and stuff that they're basically under control of it. All the other big companies, Alibaba, Temu, all these, they are straight up government companies. which would seem normal in a communist country, right? Wouldn't you think that all companies are basically the workers control the means of production and therefore blah, blah, blah. But there is no social safety net. They're still enslaving people in the meow people and the weaker people to do, to essentially make goods and sell them to other countries. This is not a situation where, and maybe that's the most communist thing about them, because that's certainly how Stalin worked and the like. But understand, there used to be a separation, sort of, a soft separation between companies that were run by the CCP and directly controlled by the CCP, and some that maybe were like midway local government or okay, whatever, and some little bit of overlap. That's fucking gone. Everything on any major company is a government subsidiary, wholly controlled by them. There is no decision they get to make without an okay from the CCP, without like a rubber stamp. Just no question. That's just. And the other thing too is, are they truly communist? No. The CCP has more in common with a gangster kleptocracy than it has with some idea of Marxism or any of that shit. It's just the gang that runs shit. Because they're not taking that money and giving it back to the people. There is no safety net. There is no national health care service to speak of. There is no retirement. You get all of the control of a Stalinistic regime and none of not even like bread lines where or toilet paper lines like they at least pretended to have during the Soviet Union. None of that. You still got to buy your own shit. I'm dead serious. So that's why everything is taking like a giant shit like this. The article on this, even in this situation, or in their description of the situation, is with one going up and the other going down, Nvidia is now worth as much as the entire Chinese stock market, represented by the 8 shares of the Hong Kong stock market. There's a point made by Michael Hartnett, Bank of America strategist, who also notes that the 600 billion market cap rate rise in Nvidia over just the last 2 months equals the entire market cap of Tesla. And again, Tesla, let's talk a minute about the promise of AI and the bullshit of Tesla. First of all, Tesla's fucking chatbot is just a dick. You could just take a chat GPT and go, you're kind of a jerk, and you make off-color jokes, and then turn it loose on Twitter users and make them pay to borrow your credits, essentially, on ChatGPT. That's what that is. That's what the X fucking whatever his AI on there is. It's just a ChatGPT large language model that's been taught to be a dick, and it borrows the sort of programming of ChatGPT. Now that said, one of the things that Elon Musk has been promising since like 2015 is self-driving cars. Right? That was the thing. In 2015, he's like, by 2017, you're going to be able to, your car, when you park it in your driveway at night, you'll charge it up. And once it's fully charged, it'll just drive around and people can use it as a fucking taxi without you even being a part of it. Which, by the way, if you live in Vegas, that's just a recipe for the next guest getting in, sitting in vomit. Because Jesus Christ, I weep for Uber drivers in Las Vegas. And God help us, the cabbies will tell you. That said, never happened. And when it did happen, as it started to grow, it just became a nightmare. Like all you started seeing everywhere was videos of these cars just like blazing out of control, either because somebody was like blowing off driving in a situation it wasn't trained for, or trying to overtake it, or not shutting it off before taking control of it and just fucking just blowing up, or like driving the car into a fucking retaining wall at 110 miles an hour. It's fucking terrifying. So the guy, and most of us aren't that comfortable. It's weird when your car won't let you change lanes without signaling when there's no one else on the road because it detects a double line and you're crossing over it. And it's like, no, you don't. And you're like, dude, if I was trying to get out of the way, this hesitation would fuck with me. At least you could turn that shit off. But imagine the car just overriding you fucking entirely, and it just starts to speed up after you've dozed off, and just boom. Like, fuck that. All right. So let's just be abundantly clear. The promise of Tesla is a ton of shit. On top of that, BYD, the biggest electric car company in the world, the Chinese company, which they jokingly say BYD stands for burn your driveway because of their battery technology catches fire all the time, basically just stole everything from Tesla. So Elon Musk sets up his gigafactory in Shanghai to make batteries, and he makes a bunch of his cars in China. And then after a short while, BYD starts putting out cars that look exactly like Teslas and drive exactly like Teslas and have the same basic software as a Tesla. I mean, they're just fucking knockoffs. And anytime he even bristled at it, they're like, we're just gonna, we'll turn the netizens on you. We'll publish some stuff that you're being anti-China, and then nobody will buy your fucking cars anymore. And the Tesla sales drop about 3%, and then he goes back to kissing their ass. But it doesn't matter anymore because BYD has outpaced him. There's this huge sense of Chinese nationalism, even if he was kissing their ass fully, because it's considered an American company. They're like, fuck you. And it's no longer a status symbol to have a Tesla there anymore, because BYD is basically, again, another ripoff of that. And they'll, and there's sort of this government support for buying it, right? So he's screwing his own business model. And if he's this genius, he should have seen this coming. Just saying. Yeah. So there you go. Nvidia soared 228% over the last 52 weeks, while the Hang Seng in Hong Kong has dropped 26%. You've got Maria Bartiromo in here. By the way, this is, let's see if this actually plays in here. Let me see this. Yeah. Turn the audio up on this guy. This is them talking about the stock market when they're just talking about the stock market without.
On the move, Fox shares higher earlier going into the report. Joining me right now is Market Rebellion co-founder Pete Najarian. Pete, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. So how would you assess the earnings season so far, Pete?
Fourth quarter EPS are exceeding estimates by 6.5%. Again, this is how they talk about the economy when they're not mentioning Biden.
So far, I think it's been relatively strong. When you look at what started off with the financials, of course, that always kicks it all off. But when we've gotten to the meat of what we were really looking for, we wanted to find out Amazon and Google and Microsoft.
64% of S&P 500 companies have beaten the fourth quarter revived estimates. That's what that said. Hold on, let me shift to this. You can probably see it a little better. There you go. Make it a little bigger.
Microsoft and all those various names. And so far, Maria, I think it's been pretty impressive. Yes, there's been a little bit of disappointments here and there, but I think in the overall picture, you can see by the reflection of what the NASDAQ has been doing that, quite honestly, a lot of these different tech companies themselves have really done pretty
Look at the green.
well. I really would love to highlight a couple of them. I think Meta would be one for sure. Nvidia would be another one. But when you look at Nvidia right now, Maria, here's an interesting stat for you. How about the fact that it's up for the last 70 days? It has increased more than $10 billion per day. It's up over $750 billion in the last 70 days.
That's incredible.
It's been an absolutely incredible run. And yet, when I look at it and I start to look over at what is the PE of this company right now, what's the price versus earnings? It's 33 forward. So when I look at that, it doesn't tell me that we are too hot right now. As a matter of fact, despite the fact that we've had an incredible move to the upside, I look at that name and I look at something like Meta that absolutely crushed it. I think there's a lot of reasons why you could still be very bullish on some of these names.
I can understand.
Again, the rest of the time, Maria Bartiromo is absolutely shitting on the economy. And the stock market and the like, and Biden and everything else. But when they talk, this is the sort of part of Fox Business where they're not talking politics, and they absolutely are just like they're glowing about this shit.
But Nvidia, I believe, reports earnings on the 21st.
Yeah,
it's 21st.
Yeah,
okay.
Nvidia.
Yeah. So February.
81% have beaten fourth quarter earnings estimates, is what this says right here.
I don't know.
81% of these companies are beating fourth quarter earnings estimates. What they thought, what Maria and her friends all were like, they'll make this amount of money. Same with the fucking jobs numbers. They are, and here's the thing. I got to tell you, if Trump was in office, the Chiron would be different. The Chiron would say, 81% have met or been below fourth quarter earnings estimates because they are intentionally downplaying the possibility of growth and positive news for political reasons. And in the case of Trump, they would be like, oh, this is fucking, we're in the money. And if their estimates would be higher than are possible just to create the smoke. And then if it fell below it, it's the company's fault and the stupid fucking consumers who don't know a deal when they see one.
No, Adam Johnson, if I want to go into an Nvidia quarter waiting on earnings with a stock that is trading at 33 times, that is up hundreds of billions of dollars.
I'm with you. I hear you, but, and Pete, by the way, I am with you because I actually just upped my target on Nvidia to 900, and I get there. You know, Pete, you're talking about.
Yeah. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Right now, Nvidia, the company that is creating the most, essentially, has the highest production in AI chips available right now, and their GPUs are the most commonly used, and they even were overstocked last year. They had too many of these motherfuckers, and they still, their stock still went up. It's at 680 right now. That motherfucker just said their stock is worth 900. He thinks it's going to 900. Yeah. Let's go, Brandon.
About the multiple being 33 times. Actually, if you put a 30 multiple on earnings next year of $30, you get to 900. So, I hear you, Maria. It's hard to buy names that are up, but these are companies, and Nvidia is a company that just keeps guiding up, and it's got the stuff everyone wants, chips for AI. So.
Welcome to Fried AI, where Hal is always right. Now, granted, I've got a head start on some of this shit because I'm named after a computer, but still, doesn't guarantee I'll be right. It's just that I think this shit through.
There's a fundamental reason to like it.
Well, I want to just point out, Citigroup strategists say U.S. tech stocks face the risk of a big sell-off and could trigger a wider rout, Pete. That's from Citi. And I also have to mention, in the midst of these comments from Citi on tech, look what's going on in banking. Okay, what do you make of these regionals? What the heck with New York Community Bank here again?
Crypto death. Crypto death. Regional banks are fucked by crypto. They all got over leveraged in crypto, thought it was a good place to park their money because it was growing so fast, and then went, oh fuck, and couldn't get their money out fast enough. That's what happened to these regional fucking banks. All of them. All the banks that have been, the regional banks that have been going down the last 2 years, all of them during COVID were just packing shit in on crypto. They're all fucking idiots.
And down this morning, and people are worried. And why did...
By the way, not all regional banks were all in on that shit, but all of the ones that have collapsed were.
Jay Powell removed the paragraph from his statement in this week's Fed meeting that said the banking system is sound. He did that last week. He removed the paragraph, the banking system is sound. Why?
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. I think because of the fact that maybe it's not as good as everybody is expecting it to be. I mean, quite honestly, we look at this, and we were just a year ago when we were sitting here in March.
By the way, there's also this big talk 3 years ago about it's really a battle. The Fed's battle is banks versus stocks, and who's going to win. And the idea is that banks were trying to kill the stock market, and the stock market was trying to fuck the banks because there's this leverage on low interest rates benefit people putting money in stocks. High interest rates benefit banks because people are, they'll move away from volatility and the fear of the stock market and just put their money in banks and let it grow. If you have a high enough interest rate and you can make money loaning that money out, then it's safer in a bank. And so they are naturally at odds. They're predatory towards each other. They're two hyenas fighting over the same piece of of carrying. So that's been the back and forth. The problem is that the banks for a long time, because of like super low interest rates, were ironically doing very well because they were lending out these giant fucking loans to the Trumps of the world. Because if they failed, they actually got more of a benefit because the money was so cheap.
March, and we were very concerned about regional and everything else. And I don't know that we've absolutely dug ourselves out of that hole yet. And I think that's kind of what Jerome Powell is saying without even saying it. He's just removing some of those sentences, and I think that's the reason behind it.
Cheryl.
Well, I mean, Pete, what Maria is saying is the big question here, right? When's the pullback going to be? You know that it's
Notice it's like 4 out of 5 of these banks are going up while they're talking.
coming. It would make sense that it would, but obviously that's a timing question as we go into big earnings reports like Nvidia, for example. So when do you foresee that we kind of get this fall in the market? Because it would not be a shock to see it this year at all.
Right. I think we have to get a little bit deeper into this year before we start to see that. And of course, we always are looking at the Fed, right?
Which is just a fucking Christmas sell-off. Did we learn nothing from trading places? But there, anyway. So that's the back and forth on that. Now the other one was, where is it here? Where did I go? Okay, let's go from here. I'll go back to the chat real quick. By the way, Texas Paul's going to be joining us next hour, so hit that like right away so we have a nice big crowd for him when he shows up. That'd be lovely, because if you hit the like early, then it lets people know we're here, because that's what boosts us in the algorithm, and you know, it pushes us up in the whole, like, hey, what's live right now? Like that, and then that grows us up, and then we get to the 2K, 3K, and then we start showing up next to the people who have 7, 8K, and then some of those people go, I've heard this shit before. What's this guy up to? And then they come over to me, and they're like, oh, actual information. It's not too much to ask, is it? All right. So, yeah, just hit that like. It helps a lot. And then I'm going to show you this thing. Okay. Never mind the fact that, hold on, I'm going to sneeze. It's cat hair, I think. And I'll tell you why. Hold on one second. Yes? Yes, miss? Hello? Hi. Can I help you? Are you, Chud's outside the door. Hi. Hello. You okay? Yeah. She was meowing outside the door. Hi. Oh, yeah. Get his chin scratch in. That's good. Get a little chin scratch. There you go. This is Mama Chud, everybody. Oh. So, I watched the rest of the Tucker Carlson interview last night with Putin, and on two notes. One is, I was surprised at the push that Tucker did about the Wall Street Journal journalist, but then maybe it was self-serving because he knows he's in the same fucking situation, and if he talks to the wrong person at a party over there, they could lock him up just as easily as they did that guy. So getting that out on the, you know, and getting kind of like, what's the standard for being arrested for espionage as a reporter? I just want to know where the line is drawn so I know what I can do, right? He pushed fairly hard on that, and good on him for that. The rest of the time, though, he just, I think he was just looking confused at Putin as he just fucking rambled, honestly. All right, you're gonna fall asleep, and then my arm's gonna fall asleep, and then I gotta do show. So hold on. Okay, there you go, Miss Judd. Yeah. There you go. No, because you'll go under the desk. There you go. All right. Always have to be careful with Judd, because she'll walk around and she's like a little deaf at this point. So when other cats get underfoot, it's like they mean to trip you and kill you. She kind of does it on accident. You know what I mean? Okay. So, this is kind of the generalized. Let me see. I got to shrink this back down a little bit, by the way. Carlson's interview with Putin yields propaganda history lectures. I thought the most amazing part was he had said Putin had said something earlier. Well, I wouldn't say earlier last year, like last fall, that he was like, if the U.S. stopped supplying weapons to Ukraine, this would all be over in 2 weeks. Meaning we'd be able to kick their ass. We'd take the whole fucking country, which is not a good thing. And most people reacted as such, MTGs of the world aside, right? And so a lot of people who saw that were like, fuck that dude. All the more reason to give them stuff. He said the same shit in this interview. The war would end if U.S. stops giving Ukraine weapons. It would end because Russia would win within a couple of weeks, was his point. If they stop giving them weapons, we will destroy them in 2 weeks. Right. That was it. Which, of course, is like, well, fuck you. All the more reason to keep supplying them with whatever they need, if not more. The other one is, and this is just more like people's takes on the shit, was never mind the fact that it was just fucking blather. And in the one, like I said, Putin in rambling interview barely lets Tucker get a word in. This is basically the general consensus on the whole thing, that this big fucking win for Tucker Carlson that was going to be his like Shazam, I'm the only guy with the guts to interview this dude, and you're going to hear his point of view, and it's going to change your worldview, and it's going to make you think you've been sold a bill of goods and lied to about the purpose of this whole fucking thing. And yet none of that happened. The end result of this interview, for the most part, but for all like it's like all the Trump sucks that were like clamoring for it are all ignoring it now. They're all like, well, that was kind of fucking embarrassing. And it was too boring at the beginning. They all tuned out. Like he's a victim of his own lack of editing in this regard. And he got kind of walked into this thing, I guess, by Putin's team, essentially saying, well, we can't. Hold on, let me shrink this down so I can show you more. There you go. That because he said we're not going to, either they agreed to it that way, or like, we're going to do it unedited so we don't have to, we won't get accused of cutting you out of context or any of that stuff. Or if Putin insisted on it, whatever it was, whoever thought they were going to come away with the upside in this, both are fucking wrong. It was ass. The whole thing. And most of what I've, of all the kind of like follow up of it, most of it is just people going, that was a waste of fucking time and stupid and a bunch of shit, essentially. This was and this is weird too. New York Times has been particularly weird about Gaza in that it takes, with a total lack of credulity, it takes, Hamas numbers as the baseline for reality. It's weird. The New York Times has oddly just been carrying water for Hamas since October 7th. And they tried to make up for it with their special report on the sexual violence that happened on that day. And then they just kind of like, well, we did that. Now let's go back to the same bullshit. It's been very weird. And their handling of this is very similar. Of all the sites that I looked at, this was the most kind of like, we're old-fashioned news and we'll just pretend there's no backstory to this, right? So does the IDF of what? Take their numbers? No, they don't. In a 2-hour interview, President Vladimir Putin was more direct than usual about how he sees his Ukraine invasion ending, not with a military victory, but a deal with the West, which is, I don't know, like I watched it, I don't know what the fuck this person is talking about. The deal with the West, that's not because essentially he thinks he's going to be able to salami slice a chunk of this off. That's how I guess he planned it in the beginning. But the idea that he at one point would say, if you guys stop giving them weapons, this would be over in a couple of weeks. And they tried to take fucking Kiev in the first 6 days of the goddamn thing, does not mean we'll just stop at the Donbass. And he starts in many ways, and it might be an election year thing, but it's him trying to walk back this whole Dnipro River thing where really everything west of the Dnipro River is Poland. It's not even Ukraine. I don't know what the fuck that is. And then everything to the east of it is Russia, which includes, of course, Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk, and all that area. Is just him. It looks like him trying to back his way out of a major fuck up. Yeah. So this is Anton Troyanovsky. Good for you, Anton, because I don't know what the fuck. Has worked for decades to win allies in the West, using his spy agencies to interfere in elections, deploying diplomats to build links with Kremlin-friendly politicians. On Thursday, the world witnessed, including Denis Kucinich. That's what that whole Syria link was. Jesus. On Thursday, the world witnessed a new verbose chapter in those efforts. Mr. Putin's 2-hour interview taped in a gilded hall at the Kremlin, one of America's most prominent and most divisive conservative commentators. Called on the United States to make an agreement to cede Ukrainian territory to Russia in order to end the war. He sought to appeal directly to American conservatives, just as Republican lawmakers are holding up aid, which, by the way, I don't think he did. Putin says, "Don't you have anything better to do?" In response to Mr. Carlson's question about the possibility of American soldiers fighting in Ukraine. You have issues on the border, issues with migration, issues with the national debt. Wouldn't it be better to negotiate with Russia? I mean, this is basically where Trump gets his talking points. Much of it was about Kremlin history, blather. Mr. Putin was more direct than usual about how he sees his Ukraine invasion ending, not with a military victory, but through an agreement. In the interview's end, Mr. Putin told Mr. Carlson that the time had come for talks about ending the war because those who are in power in the West have come to realize that Russia will not be defeated on the battlefield. No, they haven't. The reason he's willing to talk is because it is very possible they will lose on the battlefield. That's the only reason Russia comes to the fucking table in the first place. And if we gave Ukraine what they needed, this asshole would have come to the fucking table to beg for an exit plan last year. If so, if the realization is set in, they have to think what to do next. We are ready for this dialogue, Mr. Putin said. Responding to Carlson's question about whether NATO could accept Russian control over parts of Ukraine, Putin said, "Let them think how to do it with dignity. There are options if there is a will." Yeah, there's also options for you to just get the fuck out. Why does your relationship with the historical Russian nature of any of the people in that land have to do anything with your fucking control of that territory? Is the weird part. Jesus Christ! Look at Austria and Germany overlapping clearly between the Germanic tribes and the Bavarians and all that shit and the overlapping language. You could argue Austria's part of Germany or Germany's part of Austria or any of that kind of shit, but it doesn't fucking matter. The borders have been there for a long time. Everybody could travel the fuck however they want, and what people make if they would benefit from a tax purpose in Austria over Germany, they'll just fucking move there. Because they speak the same language and the EU is open in that regard. So what's the fucking difference? Why does Russia need to control the Donbass at all, except for military reasons and to basically own the goods and services that come out of that area? It's a resource war and he can go fuck himself. Other than that, I have no opinion. By the way, let me bring this up so I can get ready for Texas Paul to join me in here in a minute. I'll enable that, and then I've got to turn on my little virtual webcam so we can see what I'm talking about and see when he's on the show and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll turn on the thing so I can hear him when he comes in, and we're all ready to go. Now, the weird part too was that the place where, remember, like Tucker Carlson, I showed it yesterday, a little bit of it in the afternoon show, but you know how Tucker Carlson was standing, he had the Kremlin right behind him. He was standing on a balcony and the Kremlin was right behind him for his little opening dialogue. Okay, that's from the Hyatt in Moscow. And you can't stay there without FSB clearance. You have to be, they got to sign off on you being there. And if you are there, there's a very strong chance that if you don't do exactly what they want, you'll end up like the dude from the Wall Street Journal. And maybe that's why I don't think it was an altitude thing. Maybe that's why Tucker Carlson was huffing and puffing during that entire interview. If you watched him, he was, kind of like these weird, deep breaths in between stuff. It might have been the cold, because, I think anybody who grew up in Chicago or Minnesota or I guess fucking Buffalo, New York, you know what it's like to like walk outside and cough immediately because the air's so goddamn cold. Yeah, Jared Khashoggi. Anyways, and then he asked him, "Well, are you going to get into a fight with NATO countries?" And we have no interest in Poland, Latvia, or anywhere else. It's just threat mongering, which is fear mongering, but that's the translation, whatever. And then he asked about this dude. He's the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich, who's being held. It's one of the reasons, by the way, that Tucker got fired from Fox, was because he was siding with Putin and all this shit and kissing his ass while he was on Fox, while this guy had been nabbed. And Rupert didn't like the fact that he was basically siding with the guy who abducted his fucking reporter for just being a reporter. FSB is still KGB. Yeah, it's just a renaming. It's just, the whole thing was ass. It accomplished fuck all. And I have to say, one of the best parts about it was just how fucking boring it was. Because, it was amazing how hard this asshole sold this thing in the lead up. And is he going to do it? And the controversy, and fucking Glenn Beck and all these assholes going, oh, finally, somebody's going to get the real truth. And then when he sat down and interviewed him, he might as well have been fucking interviewing Roseanne at this point. Half of his shit sounded like QAnon blather. Yeah. Only not as exciting in its silliness. It's just fucking ridiculous. So, for the record, it was an absolute swing and a miss. And that's the best thing I think you could say about it. Let's see. Try and find one other thing, and I think our dear friend Texas Paul will be joining us in about 5 minutes. Hit that like. Join us on the regular. The show is on 3 p.m. Pacific time every afternoon, and then of course the morning show is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and of course the radio show is on Saturday morning. Now tonight, after I finish the evening show, I'm going to drive back to Los Angeles, stay overnight there, so that I'm not fucking exhausted, and I have the timing of this, and I'll get up, do radio from there, and then go straight to the Nerd Halen gigs, and then I'll make a decision whether I drive back late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, for like safety's sake, as far as whether I'm tired or whatever. Our shows are relatively early, so quite frankly, I could be back on the road, and I'd be back here even before it's too late. I think our first show's at like 4:30. Driving back at night isn't the problem. As a matter of fact, it's kind of better. The issue is what will help me avoid Super Bowl traffic. Because Sunday morning, that may be the reason why to come back Sunday morning more than anything else. So there you go. Tucker Carlson's a definition of resting dumb face. It's true. He has the Twitter files all over again. Yes, which were also a fucking waste of time. There he is in the background. I hear him messing around back there. I'm going to grab that link and bring him in. Give me 1 second, and I'll have our dear friend... there he is. Hold on. I got him almost all set up already. Got Texas Paul in there, and paste that in there. We hear you. There he is. He's working out, making big Texas noises. Hold on. I'll bring you in there.
Sorry about that.
That's all right, my friend. There you are. There he is. Welcome to the show, Texas Paul. How are you, sir? Welcome.
Wonderful.
How are you this fine day? It is it's crazy. Did you watch? I was just talking about this, but did you get a chance to watch the absolute fucking blather of that interview of Tucker Carlson? And Jesus Christ. Like I never I watch a lot of true crime, and I've never been bored by a serial killer more in my fucking life. I swear to God. Like, that's what it was. It was like the most boring serial killer interview you could ever see.
You know, I don't know about you, but I was actually a little worried. I mean, you're going to platform Vladimir Putin.
Right.
He's got the opportunity to plug straight into the right wing here in the United States.
Right.
And it was fucking awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 45 straight minutes of incorrect history.
Right.
Tucker Carlson the whole time.
Yeah, there's like
sitting there, didn't move.
Double butt cracking it the whole time. Just of 2 forehead butt cracks. Like, do I even correct him? Is he going to kill me? You know? We are on the 3rd floor of this fucking building. Like, that's all I would be thinking about. I'd be looking at every window and going, like, my chair would be like, erp, erp, erp. Like, hopping my chair away from the fucking window.
I absolutely loved the 3rd time that Tucker Carlson tried to interrupt him, tried to ask him anything. He looked him dead in the eye and said, yeah, you tried to apply for a job at the CIA and they wouldn't hire you because, you know, they're a serious organization. I was like, oh my God.
He got the Trump treatment from Vladimir Putin, directly from the source. You know what I mean? That's like getting a hot shot of heroin before it's cut with baby laxative. You know, it's like Trump is heroin cut with baby laxative, and Putin is the fucking raw opium source, right? And like, to watch him kind of take that, like, I did my homework on you, and you might not leave this room, is basically what that statement means. Yeah. Like, that's him saying, like, don't ask me too many fucking questions, because you know what I did with one of your colleagues? You used to have the same boss as that guy I've got locked up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the fact that right after that, he didn't miss a beat, and he went right back to, and this is the shit I'm going to tell you, and this is the shit you're going to put on TV. And it was awful, man. It was awful.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm quite I was pleasantly surprised by how awful and what a fucking wasted time it was, because if he'd have edited this thing, if he'd have not released this just fully, because he was looking for the eyeball, that's the one thing about online shit, if you can get the viewer hours up, and he knew everybody'd watch the whole fucking thing whether it was any good or not, and under this idea that, you know, if you cut it down to a half hour, it, you know, great. But if he could get people locked in to watch all 2 hours just in case, and that's exactly what fucking happened. The problem was it just ate up the fucking narrative. Yeah, this motherfucker is crazy. Yeah, this motherfucker thinks he owns Ukraine. He's still talking about denazifying the fucking place while mentioning that the president's Jewish.
Yeah, and then turns around and talks about how Poland started World War II,
right?
because they should have just done what Hitler wanted. I mean, why did they just screw around for so long? They started World War II. Don't you know that?
Right. And they violated the Molotov-Ribbentrop treaty that the USSR had with the Nazis about dividing up Poland and Czechoslovakia and all that kind of shit. Like. And the idea, by the way, the other thing is, like, you know, he's like, you're not going to attack Poland, are you? He's like, why would we attack Poland? Like, because Ukraine's not your fucking country. I don't know, Georgia, Chechnya, go fuck yourself. There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
I thought the weirdest question, and I'd love your thoughts on this, was the whole, like, you know, if it's your country, you've got nukes, they don't. Why didn't you attack it right away? Why wait this long?
Yeah, that was like just wow, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just sitting there and he's asking this question, and you're like, he didn't really ask that, did he? I mean, he
Yeah.
didn't really just ask Putin, why didn't you do this shit 20 years ago? I mean, and Putin just sitting there, just bullshitting his way through this.
Right.
Well, we just wanted the Donbass and Crimea because that was actually Russia. That's actually our land. Yada, yada, yada. Bullshit. You want all of Ukraine.
Right.
You want all of Poland. You want Moldova. You want to you want to rebuild the Soviet Union. Everyone knows this.
Right.
Period. That's why Viktor Orban's ass is in such a crack. The EU's able to tell him, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Go join Russia. Try that on for an economy. You know, I mean,
right.
It's really just watching these guys sit there and say stuff that, I mean, even right wingers. I mean, did you know? And that's one that I have a question for you about, Hal, because you understand the psychology of this much better than I do. What the hell with just repeating right-wing talking points? I mean, Putin just comes out and says, why don't you mind your business because of talking point 1, 2, and 3? The border, debt. Right. I mean, it's like this could have come out of Mitch McConnell's mouth.
Yeah, I would argue it's the Trump talking point, just a pure, less blathery version of it in some ways. But he basically just admitted in that to be the delivery point for that talking point. He clearly wasn't saying it because listen to your own people say this. He started that talking point, which, by the way, is nowhere near a reality. Do we have a high debt in this country? Absolutely. But our economy has grown commensurate to it. We had a $10 billion economy when we had a $12 billion debt. We have a $27 billion economy when we have a $32 billion debt. It's the same fucking thing. We are expanding the availability of funds. And then Trump's responsible for like $8 trillion of it. Without him and his fuck around, we'd be well below that point. The reason I think they like it is this sort of like they're so wrong about Trump, and they've been so wrong about everything. He didn't get Mexico to pay for the wall. All that stuff is just, they're just tormented by the amount of bullshit that comes out of him. That if anybody goes, see, he said it. See, I've been right. See, they're saying it. Anybody who says something that's remotely a Q talking point, from Russia to Orban to fucking Tucker Carlson, they're like, oh, see, it's not just me saying it. This guy said it, and he's rich, or he's powerful, or he's willing to kill people. I don't know what the fuck the standard is, but that's where they get it from. That's why these people, he's their backup for their confirmation bias. He covers them in that. That's my theory on it. Anyways,
but it's so blatantly obvious. Okay, we know where these talking points came from.
Right.
This didn't come out of the RNC. Rona Romney McDaniel didn't engineer this whole bot run talking point about how suddenly we're being invaded. That came straight out of Putin. That came out straight out of Putin's troll farms, and he just confessed to it last night, sitting in front of Tucker Carlson, who just
Carlson
sat there.
Knew it.
Yeah, he did.
Because he's awful, but he's not. He's an asshole, but he's not stupid. That's the sort of the concerning part about Tucker Carlson, is that he doesn't actually have any fucking skin in this game. This guy is independently wealthy. He's a trust fund baby. He was born with a silver pewter spoon up his ass. And so he's never got to worry about the things that the average American has to worry about. So he can comfortably fucking do surgery on these motherfuckers because he knows he himself will never be under the knife. And that's what he does all the time. So he can sell this shit. Yeah. Doesn't make any difference to him. He's always going to be rich. Buy the dip if these fuckers are too scared. And if there's a bull market, jump in. Just build your wealth on top of, and look for the greater idiot. That's a lot
of folks don't know that he's the Swanson TV dinner heir.
Yeah,
he's one of the people that trust fund when Swanson died and actually the company went on inside a trust fund. He is one of the Swanson TV dinner trust fund babies. That's who Tucker Carlson is.
Yeah, he's been independently wealthy his entire life, and he was making millions as a Fox contributor and as a CNN contributor. That's one of the reasons why he could afford to kind of do it. It's like, there are certain points where if you look at who are, with rare exception, MSNBC would be the exception largely, But you're gonna see that, especially at Fox News, the people who've made it there, who didn't just like don't live on the cheap, aren't there on the cheap, have either had to be there forever, or making shit for years and sucking it up, or they came in rich already and just coasted. They didn't have to push the company to give them a raise because they were already rich to start with. And so they, like you could argue that the one version of that on MSNBC is Andrea Mitchell, because she's, like she was married to the head of the
Greenspan's wife.
Fed. Yeah, right. She was married to Greenspan. So they're rich anyways. Same thing with Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Kudlow, most of these fuckers. One of the reasons they were attracted to Fox is because they're all, they're soundly 1%ers, and they're going to stay that way, was the idea. And so they could coast along on that, and stuff. So the weird part is that, I mean, this seems to have backfired so fucking quickly in its lameness. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I watched this, I was like looking at my watch.
Yeah.
I'm like, this fucker's been talking for 45 straight.
Yeah.
And there were no questions. There were no guy. He just literally thinks he's going to give me this bullshit history lesson that even I know, who didn't live in Ukraine, knows this is bullshit. I mean, and Tucker Carlson, it's like he didn't prepare for this interview at all. At all. Man, I knew I was coming on your show. So I wanted to be able to groove right in. So I jumped into chat. I watched the show for 45 minutes, 50 minutes. That's what you do. When you're going to be on somebody's show.
Get up to speed.
It's like Tucker Carlson didn't prep for this interview at all.
It's almost like he anti-prepped for it because he was believing the talking points walking in, right? That he didn't go, well, where are the holes in this? Now, there were a couple of times when he he said, I hear where you're going, but I don't see how that's relevant to the last 2 years. That's a bold question in that circumstance. And the reality is, you and I both know, he got permission from them and from Putin probably himself to act like he's pushing at certain points. There were no questions that, in this regard where and you could tell his focus on the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan, that was taken. You could tell that that was in the front of his fucking mind. And so he's not going to walk in there and go, oh, this guy doesn't give a fuck. He'll lock somebody up. And at this point, what's he got to lose? Half the country back home would probably laugh at me if this motherfucker locked me up. And the other half would probably say I was because I haven't been all in on Trump, or there's audio of me shitting on, like the minute, that's a weird thing. So the minute Putin grabbed Tucker Carlson, if he did, and put him in fucking jail, like, just for whatever trumped up charge. No pun intended. Our half would go, it's your ass, motherfucker. You went over there. The Trump side, ironically enough, the Trump side would immediately be flooded with all the recordings of him and the text messages of him that came out that said he doesn't like Trump and Sidney Powell's full of shit and the 2020 election wasn't stolen. All those insider text messages would suddenly just show up all over X again. And the entirety of MAGA would just shrug off the loss of Tucker Carlson. They say, fuck him. He took, but Putin's real because he took him because he's against Trump.
Yep, absolutely. But I tell you what, the one thing I took from this that really made me happy, I've been following politics for a long time, and I understand the art of it. I understand the skill of it. I understand that there are techniques, and Putin's slipping, man. Putin, he used to be good at this. He is. 20 years ago, that interview would have been so different. It would have been, this is the question we're giving you to ask Putin, that was a real hard question. And Putin would have had a $10 answer for a $2 question and knocked it out of the park like Babe fucking Ruth, and made his point, and this is why we believe that. And everybody in the world would have walked away with, well, I don't agree with him, but he had a point.
Yeah.
None of that gone. This interview.
Totally.
None of it. Yeah, everybody that watched this interview is like, he's lost his fucking mind.
Yeah, it's weird, but like, and it's interesting that, you know, Trump, you've seen it, I'm sure, just as much as I have it. Like Trump walking around about how Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are at the top of their game, and Biden doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and he's slipping, and he doesn't know how to talk to these guys, and they know everything, and they're, you know, and he's an idiot and can't put two sentences together. And then you watch this shit, and you're like, oh, I see. I've been seeing edited versions of this motherfucker for so long. I thought he was the same Putin from 15 years ago. But everybody ages. And the difference between, you know, Biden slip-ups is that he never claimed to be, you know, the greatest speaker in the world. He gaffes all the time. He always has. He has a stutter, that kind of shit. He's got a lot on his mind. Nobody cares. And he's never going to make a mistake. He's never going to double down on a mistake. He's never going to go... Like yesterday, he mixed up Egypt and Mexico in the names when he was talking about the border of Gaza and Egypt or whatever, and he said Mexico.
But he clearly knew what he was talking about because he was talking about aid coming in from Rafah. You know, what I mean, and
Sisi and the conversations that he had and all that kind of stuff, and he just like a single word slip. Biden would go like they told him that later. He's like, "Fuck," you know, I meant Egypt, whatever, and everybody does that. Trump, on the other hand, would just double down and go, "No, it is Mexico. No, if you really think about it." You know, really, if you think about it, Hamas, we don't know who's coming across, so I'm having to talk to Egypt about terrorists coming across our southern border. He would just craft that whole fucking thing. Yeah.
Sisi went to Mexico, and we had a secret summit in Mexico, and I talked to Sisi in Mexico. You just don't know about it. And you're 100%.
He always doubles down on the future, on the furniture and future. Like, no, not and motherfucker. Just say future. You said furniture, you meant future. Just go furniture, future. Like, I misread a word. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. But his ego is so fucking delicate, he can't allow himself that moment, right? Whereas Biden doesn't give a shit, just moves on with what he's doing. And is talking about serious shit. The same thing was true.
It makes him take a fucking Sharpie and take a meteorological map and draw a big freaking circle about, I was right.
I was right about the hurricane. Right. That and for the first time, I think yesterday, we sort of saw that. Remember all that talk about like during COVID, pre the attack on Ukraine, and why the State Department and why the Biden administration said, this motherfucker's going to attack Ukraine. He's talking it. He's moving his people in. He's moving medical supplies to the border of Ukraine. That's not what you do when you're planning to, you know, just do a military exercise or bluff. He's moving the real shit in. And everybody was like, nah, you know, but like Putin during that time, the whole talk about was he was like, isolating himself. He was watching a shit ton of YouTube, right? He was watching all this like Russian historical stuff. And then he shows up at that fucking interview with like a folder of old documents from the archives in Russia, which is exactly what people in the administration and the State Department were saying. Like, this motherfucker is watching a bunch of old YouTube videos, Russian YouTube videos, about how basically the whole world is Ruski Mir. Everything was Russia at some point or other because Catherine was so fucking great. And then he was like going down into the archives or having somebody go down and pull papers for him and stack up like, see, I have evidence. And then he wants to tear up the fucking deed for Alaska. Like, that's going to fucking do anything. It's exactly what people were saying was happening to this dumb fuck.
Give that a try, buddy. Yeah, give that a try. Why, you know, would a motherfucker please try that?
Yes, right. And the irony that, like, suddenly you and I would be on the same side as Sarah Palin in a moment. We'd all be like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the one time she would just fold in and find her true patriotism. She and her drunk ass ex, you know, would be flinging shit at these guys.
You know, people think that Canadians are the sweetest, kindest people. Don't go to war with Canada. Don't. And if Russians rolled into Alaska, Canada would be on that shit like white on rice. Yeah. And you talk about half the war crime laws we have on the books are because of Canada. I am telling you, these people are.
Yeah.
I mean, the Russians would be like, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Beauty, eh? Like, I mean, come on. Like, get the fuck out of here, eh? Like, you thought we didn't have guns, eh? We just have, like, big ones. We just don't like handguns, eh? Because they don't do the job. Beauty. Yeah. It was like I said, I think that fucking interview was a goddamn miracle because it really did throw a big fucking wet blanket over this illusion that somehow Vladimir Putin is just this fucking master chess player and Ukraine has no shot and this motherfucker's got some secret move after losing 380,000 of his own fucking people in this dumbass excursion. And in this interview, he's talking about, oh yeah, we just wanted this side of the Dnipro. And the rest of the Dnipro, that's not even Ukraine. That's Poland. P.S. Don't tell me you're not going to, you got no reason to attack Poland if you're saying Kiev is technically part of Poland and that after we leave, Poland's probably going to take Ukraine, in which case we're probably going to take it again. We'll get another shot at it, which means they'd be attacking Poland, which is just fucking like, God damn, the dude's a lunatic and he's slipping.
Yeah.
And like, I do think that I would love to hear, like, be a fucking fly on. You want to talk about text messages I would love to see from Tucker Carlson? I want to see his fucking text messages after that interview where they're back home and he's talking shit with his producer about the interview and with Elon Musk and whoever the fuck he's confiding in about, like, Jesus Christ and the shit we had to do, and he smelled like vodka and he farted the whole time and just like dizzy, and they had to come and bring him in because his hand doesn't work, and he insisted on being seated when we came in and that I would sit first because everybody else was shining him on at these fucking BRICS meetings.
You know, and you can't what you just hit upon about where Putin is, you can't stress that enough. The entire world just saw not this three-dimensional chess player, not this brilliant guy, not this uber strong guy. You're talking about a guy who couldn't effectively win an interview with Tucker frickin' Carlson, who would literally lick his balls on screen.
Right.
And he couldn't pull that off, much less the invasion of Ukraine, much less. I'm telling you, if I'm German, like Germany's been all in on their support of Ukraine, man. Like never before. I mean, tell me that's not some scary shit with Germany saying, you know, we should probably go over. I mean, that is some scary shit, man. But they've been all in. Tell me if you're Germany watching this, they're turning around like, oh, we got this. We should.
His conversation about Germany in the very beginning of it, where he's trying to, like, he's basically you could tell. Okay, so they had hooks in Trump. They clearly had hooks in some of the upper people in the chancellery in Russia. You know, if they couldn't get Merkel, they had ministers in there that were trying to talk her down, where they were, you know, like, Nord Stream's going to be great for us. That's how that whole project got started. It was reinforced with German money and all this kind of stuff. And he literally at one point is like, please just turn it back on. He literally said, you know, just let the gas flow through. And like that, why is that? It's because this dumb motherfucker has lost more in natural gas revenue for Russia than it has gained in the last decade. All the money that Russia made in natural gas, supplying Europe, all of it is gone. Never mind the fucking 380,000 dead Russians this motherfucker spent on this ridiculousness. All the money they made from this point to now is gone. Same with China. All the money that China got by, you know, copying products and creating this model of like muscling American companies, making them sign deals with local distributors, stealing the intellectual property, making their own copies, selling it inside the United States or throughout Asia or the subcontinent and all that kind of shit, or throughout Africa. All that shit, all that money they made, all the money that China has made doing that business model that they were building up. This is how they're going to take over and surpass the United States. It's gone. It's all fucking gone.
Yeah.
I don't think people can like wrap their head around like 2008 meets the Great Depression meets like imagine if World War II, all the shit we built in World War II and all the industrial base we created in World War II was gone in 6 months. Not 30 years we lost some manufacturing jobs, ebb and flow, NAFTA, blah, blah, blah. Gone. And like,
you remember The Wizard of Oz when you saw it the
OG.
first time? And then the curtain came back, and there was the
Mhm.
guy, and he's in a suit, and he's just it's like if the curtain came back, and he'd been hammered, freaking drunk, was laying on the steps with
Right.
no freaking pants on and a dick hanging out. That
Yeah,
is
right.
what we're seeing right now. You know, it blew my mind. You want to talk about how screwed Russia is?
Yeah.
You remember that hit on the gas terminal in Ust-Luga that just
Mhm.
happened just a couple days back? That drone. It's not a predator, man. It's about the best Ukraine can do right now in the middle of a war. It is not a predator drone. It is not a drone with any stealth capability. They picked that drone up at midnight.
Yeah.
They found it on midnight. It stayed on station for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Unmolested, hit the gas terminal, set it ablaze, and the Russian military establishment could do nothing. I mean, they just like, what do we do? I mean, that's what's left of Russia, man.
Right.
I mean, it's just.
There was.
I mean,
let me show you something real quick. This is a female blogger in Russia who was jailed for basically wanting the war to end. Basically, just this is what happens to just their level of like YouTubers or bloggers about shit or whatever. She was, and you know what they jailed her for? She faces up to 5 years in prison for rehabilitating Nazism. That she, by saying the war in Ukraine should end, was trying to make Nazis look good. She's gonna go to fucking jail for 5 years, and God knows, first of all, this shit isn't going to last another 5 years, and neither is Vladimir Putin. So hopefully she'll be in for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then they'll have a change up top. But he could fucking kill her in the interim, or send her to the front line as a fucking medic with a wooden gun in her hand and just let her get killed. Because that's what they do with a bunch of fucking folks. And meanwhile, what's Tucker Carlson doing? Sitting across from this dumb motherfucker who's sending, vloggers to die like this. It's just like, Jesus Christ.
That's my Tucker Carlson face.
Yeah. It's hard. I can't do the double buttocks. It takes a lot. It hurts my forehead.
Yeah. I tell you though, things are about to get real in Ukraine. This change from Zelensky to Syrskyi. Syrskyi is no freaking Zelensky, man.
Yeah.
He is. I don't know the right word for it, but he will sacrifice some lives for some. He's the guy that when they first were on the outskirts of Kyiv, Syrskyi was the one that came up with the plan to drive them back. And he wasn't like, okay, let's fortify our front and let's, Zelensky is, don't get me wrong, the man's brilliant. If you got a stagnant war, he's doing a brilliant job of taxing the Russians. That's not Syrskyi. Syrskyi's like, we're going to put everything right on a point and we're going to drive 200 miles into the Russians and kill everything we can see, and then we're going to turn around and come back, and we're going to kill everybody on the way back.
Yeah,
I mean, it's about to get brutal in Ukraine, man. I mean, it's
they're like missile and artillery fire in the Donbass is going to double in this area. Basically, the area has been clear of civilians for the most part for the last year and a half. Like in the beginning of the war, the Russians were able to keep people sort of in the front and human shield their way in Donetsk and Luhansk. And they have these little, like, the Luhansk Opera has built a new cathedral ceiling. And they would do these little fucking stupid ads that were like, life is normal. And, that they were sending back home. Like, yes, there's some fighting at the front line, but there has been since 2014 because the goddamn Ukrainians don't know when they've lost. But the rest of the area, Luhansk and Donetsk, is totally fine. And it's just improving all the time. Look at these 8th graders who've all gotten special awards and shit like that. They were like, their Telegram channels were full of that shit. Now that's all dried up. And they're locking up their mill bloggers who are still being stuck there. They're alone now. They used to have like a shitty little town around them of locals that were forced to be there too. Those fuckers have bugged out. So there's these fucking asshole mill bloggers with a like the Russian version of Starlink uploading their everything is going fine fucking Baghdad Bob reports, and they're starting to go, I don't know, there's a lot of dead bodies around me, and nobody's coming to get them, and they smell and that kind of stuff, and then they're next. Then the fucking guys show up at their door.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus,
you know,
Christ.
People were bitching. They're like, oh, well, Zelensky, he criticized Zelensky and this, that. He didn't really. I mean, he spoke his mind, and what he said differed from Zelensky a little bit. And everybody was like, oh, there's a rift there. No, Zelensky was a team guy.
Yeah.
Sirski is not. He is not. Zelensky would say, okay, you've made your inroad. Don't cross the Russian border. And Sirski would say, okay, boss, whatever. Keep going.
Yeah,
Keep
right.
going.
Yeah.
We'll see you in Moscow. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of Zelensky. Keep going. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
That's the kind of general Sirski is, man. I mean,
Well,
it's gonna be fun to watch.
We both know that, you know, over the course of a lot of wars, there's a lot of winking and nodding that goes on when you're dealing with international pressure and all that kind of stuff, that you want to, you know, at least sort of a distance between, you know, the message and the deliverer and people going, well, you know, they're just fighting in a real war zone. So what they do is, if I can give them orders or I can give them a strategy, but they have enough flexibility to do whatever they want. When in reality, you're just going, fucking fill your boots, go for it. Like, I look, our official position is this, but if you guys get a chance, fucking dose that motherfucker. Like that happens a lot. And everywhere happens, and the only reason it doesn't happen in Russia or China or Iran or any of their proxies is because they never give them the "don't bother" thing. Like, they never even in the meetings pretend to. Like, maybe you have something like Putin sitting there going, "Look, this would all be over if you guys just gave up." But none of them are going, "This would be all over if people would just, you know, have a peace talk with us because we really want peace." Like, he doesn't even fucking bother with that. He's just saying, if you guys stop supplying them with rounds, we'd fucking kill them in 2 weeks and you guys could go back to sleep. You know, that, and which is the, you know, the sort of like previously the Tucker Carlson / the Marianne Williamson / the MTG methodology. Can I show you something real quick? This is, by the way, this is a piece of this is a roving artillery system that the Ukrainians are using. Check that out. Just fucking robot shit. Like, this is just, I gotta say, this is so fucking mech, whatever. This is one of the French gunner systems. And in this system, those are Indian shells. Remember all that talk about the BRICS? And he even mentioned it last night. Like, Tucker Carlson brings up the BRICS, you know, organization, and is the dollar dead because of it and all this shit, which is just garbage. India is more our partner than they are in the BRICS thing. They're just basically placating these dickheads. India is at constant war with China, more so than they are with fucking Pakistan. They have more skirmishes with China than they do with fucking Pakistan on the regular. And the idea that
Pakistan just had an election that turned that country on its ear, man. I mean, it's like, we don't know where Pakistan's going to go now.
Nope.
That was crazy yesterday.
Yep.
Nobody saw that shit coming. Nobody. I mean, this guy's what? It's
Imran Khan?
Damn near.
He's in jail.
He's like a leftist, isn't he?
Well,
extreme leftist. He's not
sort of. I mean, there's no such thing as an extreme leftist in that part of the world in that regard. Even their talk. I mean, again, you know, I'm one of these people who believes that, like, I don't like fascism, but in the United States, anyways, the organized parts of Antifa are about as anti-fascist as the Nazis were actual national socialists. And the same thing is true of Imran Khan or the Pakistani government. You can only be so socialist or so kind of left and care about all your people if you're not trying to exterminate all Hindu people in your region and subjugate women under a religious attitude. So once you have those two things in place, I'm like, are you really, you know what I mean? Like, Were the Nazis truly nationally socialist? Like, we'll get to the socialism thing as soon as we're done wiping out the Jews. And in some degree, the Pakistani leadership is kind of like that. So
yeah, I wasn't comparing him to Bernie Sanders,
Yes,
but as
right.
far as a Pakistani goes,
Right,
he's
well, yeah.
pretty far freaking left, man.
Sure, but the Pakistani left is to the right of the Iranian mullahs' attitude about headscarves. So, like, it's a fucked up place, and partly because Pakistan used to be, you know, we all know that, like, the separation of Pakistan from India and the territorial fight between, like, the Hindu base of India and the Pakistanis just deciding essentially that because of the Taliban behind them and because of the Islamic push eastward, they were going to turn India Islamic, and India said, we're Hindu, but also we're more secular than that, so fuck you. And that's where that rift started. And unfortunately, there was already a nuclear program in Greater India, and when it separated off, kind of like Ukraine had nukes after the USSR fell apart, Pakistan had nukes as well and continued to build on it. The weird part is that between the Taliban and the tribes in Afghanistan and the Pakistanis being basically, are they both Islamic? Yes. Are they both Islamists? Sure. Are they the same tribe? Abso-fucking-lutely not. And there's a bigger chance.
Not.
Right. There's a bigger chance that Pakistan and Iran would go to war than Israel and fucking Iran doing it. It's the weirdest shit. And you know, right now, so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but so India wants Tibet to be its own country and has a cultural heritage overlay with Tibet that they can benefit from sort of tourism. You fly into India, then you go to Tibet, and then you come back, and it's just got it being open. They don't really have any reason to dig into it. Whereas China needs the water from the mountains. They need that Tibetan snow for what they're doing. So that's why they want it. So they've been controlling parts of it. They muscle the Tibetans out, backfill it with Han Chinese, and try to basically systemically rape their way across Tibet. That's what they've been doing. Same thing with the Uyghur regions, too. Put a Chinese male, Han Chinese, not just a random, not Miao, not Cantonese, not Southern Chinese, specifically Han Chinese. Put them in, take a Uyghur wife, put them in the house. Don't let the husband of the natural husband of the woman that they were in a relationship with have sex with her and have kids. The Han Chinese dude will have the kids. And then they'll naturally breed them out in like 2 cycles was the idea with the Uyghurs. It's fucked up. It's insane. But so that's what the Chinese want to do with Tibet. There's this little sliver at the top of Tibet where it's disputed territory. The Tibetans don't really care about it in that regard. It's a mountain range. It's not integral to where they are. It's just kind of the old borders. Nobody knew what it was for. And so India and China have been fighting over it for a long time. And they can't have guns in that area. It is technically a demilitarized area in terms of guns. It's kind of like the DMZ. But you can have knives and stuff because you might need them. And Sikhs being what they are, and some Hindus believe in carrying a knife and da-da-da. So it's been this back and forth. Okay, so you can bring bladed and blunt weapons in this. So on the regular, Chinese people and Indians, soldiers are beating the living fuck out of each other. And at one point, the Indian fighters were bringing in this this trident that is traditional in Indian warfare with this fucking dick-like knife in the center of it and these 2 slitting knives on the other side of it, and just gutting these fucking Chinese soldiers and stuff while the Chinese soldiers are using like batons to beat the fuck out of one of their guys. It's gnarly, and it goes on all the fucking time. We don't even talk about it anymore in the news. And the Tibetans are standing over here going like, wait a minute, when these assholes are done with each other, are they after us next? That's, that part drives me crazy.
What drives me crazy is that in our news, all you hear is China, China, China,
Right.
China, China, China. China is not the future of Asia, people.
Nope.
It isn't. Russia is not the future of Asia. India is the future of Asia. The I in BRICS. I in BRICS. The reason
Biggest
India
letter.
is in BRICS is because they're like, we're going to own this shit.
Yep.
All of it.
Because they need it.
And
And the rupee, the Indian rupee is the only one of their currencies that has improved since the BRICS started meeting on the regular. The ruble has gone down. The yuan has gone down. Like the South African rand, who the fuck uses that anymore? But the Indian rupee, they're able to force Russia to buy their shit, even as they've gotten kind of a pass from the European Union and America to process Russian oil and sell the refined product, to basically kill the refineries in Russia, which they have. It's fucking crazy.
And culture matters. It really does. People look at the United States, and I was watching one of my favorite creators on YouTube. He was talking about, he made a joke. It was the British talking to the American continent. He says, "You really are just a fucking war tribe, aren't you?" And he's like, yeah, because culturally, that's what we've been through our entire freaking existence, is one war after another, after another, after another. Folks, India stopped Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great kicked his ass all the way across Persia, the greatest army on earth. The Persians under Darius and all that were supposed to be the baddest people on earth with the Invincibles and all that shit. Alexander rolled right through it with the Macedonians. Got to India, and they said, "Here's your ass back."
You're right.
I mean, literally, don't start wars with India.
Because they were a functioning culture. They were a unified, singular culture. It was a Hindu religion. There was tons of fucking people. Whereas every other place they'd experienced was, despotic tribes kind of loosely tied together. Like Afghanistan. Again, I've said this before, but like Afghanistan is not the graveyard of empires because people lost. It's because they fucked off. Everybody was like, "Why are we fighting for this shit?" Even if I make a deal with somebody, there's another tribe right next door that is at war with them. So if they die, then who the fuck am I even talking to? And for fucking what? I can grow anything I can grow here. I can grow at home. There's nothing here. There's no, and this is, pre rare earth minerals and all that kind of stuff, which by the way are
opium and lithium are not that big a deal. You can get lithium from seawater. I mean,
well, the fucking Salton Sea right here in California, biggest lithium deposit on earth that they've discovered. Even the the shit that the Russians have for fertilizer. Remember the whole thing about like in year one, where we were going to run out of fertilizer because we get most of that the potash for fertilizer from Russia, and oh shit, Ukraine's not going to be able to grow anything, and there won't be any wheat in the world, and blah blah blah. Remember all that conversation? Where the fuck is that now? That everybody's like, oh no, there's like dozens of places. We were just getting it really cheap from there. We don't need to get it anywhere else, till now. Yeah. Now we need to get it right now. We need to probably find other sources. Oh, what do you know? There's a giant potash mine in Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I'm telling you, man, the world that you've been presented from your media is not the reality of the world out there. I mean, everybody, you're going to hear it especially from the Republicans, because all they do, it's the way they message. They say the same damn thing over and over and over again. China. Folks, don't worry about our relationship with China. China is what Taylor Swift says, the trash will take itself out. That's China. Worry about India, because India is like you say, how they're organized. They're not in disarray. They have the most important resource of all, which is labor, and they're not stupid. They're not stupid people. Right. They are. I mean, even poor people in India understand business. I mean, they do. I mean, they just.
But that is the distinct difference where we don't really have to worry about, because we're not starting from scratch when talking to the Indians. We're not talking, we're the way we are with China to some degree, or the way we are with Iran. And now I think the Persian roots of Iran and the Iranian people themselves, like if left to their own devices, as they were like back in the 50s, the Brits used to ski there. It used to be very normal before this whole oil thing. After this whole oil thing, guess what's going to happen? The shift over is going to happen. The Islamists are going to fade because they don't have the financial control that they have over the area based on the oil flow. And once they have to start contributing, once you're back to like rugs and dates and inventing stuff, and just like, Floridians have to sell fucking oranges and everybody else has to get along. Once you're in a market with somebody else and they can find a version of whatever you make someplace else, and they only buy from you either if it's better or if you're nicer, that's what will change the Middle East. That's the only thing that will change the Middle East. And us shifting away from a petroleum-based society as swiftly as we can do safely, which takes time. It's going to take a decade. But and we've been doing it for a while. 2017 was peak oil as far as everybody's measure.
And quit telling people it's going to be 100%. It is not.
No.
You know, the Republican talking point on this is there aren't enough minerals on Earth to shift to pure electric cars. And it's not going to be every freaking car.
Right.
And oil's not going to go away. Yeah.
I mean, cars. And then hydrogen will catch up.
Be diesels.
Right. Hydrogen's going to catch up, and then that will be our primary one. We just won't have to get it out of the fucking ground. That's the issue. Is that that seawater is renewable.
I tell you what freaked me out, Hal, is when Iran hit that Indian tanker, I was like, whoa, this could get real quick. I mean, because India, you talk about wish a motherfucker would. India, and there is tension there between, even Pakistan and Iran are, skirmishing at the border. People don't realize this is not like everybody's
Iran
all good and
Afghanistan
everything.
Had a firefight last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, okay, this could be the end of Iran quickly. Quickly, if this doesn't get settled peacefully with India, but I don't know. I don't know if Iran's going to keep poking that bear or what. But that was the one that I was like, that could get real fast.
Right. Can I show you something real quick? Now, I think this is fake. It might be real from back in the day, but I personally think it's fake. This is what's on QAnon sites right now. I'll show you this. This is what the QAnon
people, that's fake as hell.
Oh yeah, I agree.
That's
his current face, and that's him during the whatever. And by the way, where's his nunt is the thing. Like the fact that you can tell it was crafted by QAnon because they airbrushed out his nunt. But what's more important about this, other than the fact that they wanted to show them side by side being friendly, which is fucking weird, is that they're putting this all over their sites. That this is
it's
that
what
crowd
they want.
Yeah, which is also like you can tell that these motherfuckers are actually, the root of QAnon is effectively, part and parcel to a psyop, a Russian psyop that they started building on. They took advantage of an already, weak-minded group of people, and they just decided, we don't have to create this from scratch. We can just pump this up over time. And that's exactly what they fucking did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to show you. According to QAnon, there is a large. You should watch out, Texas Paul, because there's a large buildup of military planes and drones over Wichita Falls, near north of Dallas, over in Fort Worth, this area right here, and you can tell because of all the little icons that they're all stamped on the map. What more evidence do you need, Paul? Honestly,
it makes me eye roll to the point where I actually sprain an eye and I'll get like a lazy eye for a little bit. But it just the scary part is the number of people out there that this is truly anxiety inducing. They are 100% into this. And like you said, the most important thing about that picture of Trump and Putin isn't that maybe it's real or it's not real or whatever. That's not the important part. The important part is how much they want that, how much they're showing these pictures of these planes saying, okay, we're our own government, is the enemy.
Right.
But, Putin and Trump together, that's a good thing.
Right.
These people are not, this isn't something we're making up and showing you folks. These people are real. I mean, I can drive that way and run into these people. I can hear them talk at the restaurants that I'm at because for some reason they always talk this loud whenever they're,
Well, it's like a mating call. Like you say your dumb shit really loud and somebody nearby, there's the fuckable moron. And again, there used to be a time when you were just too embarrassed to say that shit in front of other people. And now, on the regular, these folks they feel kind of emboldened to say this. I think that is the one legacy of Donald Trump, is that idiots feel emboldened to just blather their bullshit. And this isn't the first time, by the way. We've had multiple times in this country where the idiots have risen up, started to periscope like a fucking submarine, right? And come up for air and go, is it safe? And eventually we all go, no, fuck off. And they go back down, right? We've seen this during the 60s, during the civil rights era, like the beginning of the civil rights era and the legislation that went through then. We've seen it in the 30s, pre-World War II, where the Nazis were, making their trip around, shit like that. But for fuck's sake, like, we're in the middle of one of these things where they all feel very emboldened, very safe, and it's on its way out. That's the weird part too, is that they'll get louder first because they're like, does anybody in here believe my bullshit? Or can I smoke out the people who don't agree with me by talking really loudly and have somebody go, well, you shut the fuck up, and like, well, that's because you're one of these. You believe the deep state, or you're part of the uniparty, or whatever, that kind of stuff, where they'll get kind of a dopamine hit off of picking a fight with a neighbor at a restaurant by over talking or being loud like that.
Are you getting that feeling also, Hal, that maybe this record's over with, that it's been played enough that even the right wingers are like, man, I'm really tired of talking about this shit.
Yes.
I mean, just.
Look at the Comer, fucking Jordan, Hunter Biden shit. Like, that is just fallen off a fucking cliff. Now they've been trying. They really decided to put all their eggs in the Mayorkas impeachment basket, and that failed miserably. And so that kind of gave them this. Well, shit. That didn't go well. The idea that we're going to be able to get the president on even lighter information, lighter details, clearly. It's going to be harder. It's going to be impossible. So,
I was talking about this on my show just a couple of shows ago that Mayorkas, Alejandro Mayorkas, Anthony Blinken went down and sat down with Obrador in Mexico. They did more in one meeting at the end of December to reduce illegal immigration than my governor has done, wasting $8 billion on our border.
Yeah.
And all the nonsense, all the noise. They did more in one meeting.
Yep.
Than the Republicans have been able to do through this entire nonsensical waste of tax dollars. And what kills me is that the corporate media wants this to be a horse race so that they get their ad money.
Right.
That they don't really cover this for the American people. So I say that to people and they're like, really? That happened? I'm like, yeah, it really happened, man.
Right.
I mean,
well, that's why this fucking convoy was hilarious. Like, these guys, it's been a while since we've seen something so massively nothing. Like, just it nothinged itself into oblivion. And now the story's coming out that these motherfuckers were sapping maggots for money, and that this was just a cash grab. That they did this they started off as this weird missionary thing, and then turned it into the fucking Freedom Convoy, and we're gonna, we're gonna meet up down there. We're gonna, block the border with trucks to stop the invasion, which none of them fucking did. There were 700,000 trucks, then 70, then 7,000, then 700, then 70, then 7, then less than 7, then 7's just a number we picked because Jesus' number is 7 and not 666. Also, by the way, 666 is a great super chat. I'm just saying for people who want to support the show. That said, and also, is it realtexaspaul.com is the website? Yeah. So make sure you check out there. All of his links for his social media stuff are there for realtexaspaul.com. That can take you to his YouTube channel, and to all the support links and all that kind of stuff are there. Also, is your Patreon the same way? Is it a patreon.com/?
I don't Patreon, man. I don't.
Oh, right. Okay.
I don't.
That's right. Well, we'll get you there someday, because I feel like we'll corral our way up, try to get everybody to, we try to build that ladder for everybody else. That said, in our last, we got about like 8 minutes left in the hour. I really do think like Poland responded to the Putin interview today and were like, what the fuck is he talking about? And this stunt just fell apart. And the convoy, it fell apart. All these things, the Hunter Biden laptop thing fell apart. The Mayorkas impeachment vote fell apart. Like, there's got to be, at some point you get mad when stuff doesn't work. Like, as a Democrat, when something didn't pass or whatever, we all got caught up in the whole, like, fuck, why can't we get this done? It's popular and we should be able to do it. But we actually, I think there is a route for a lot of the stuff we're trying to get passed. And so when something fails, we're like, for some procedural reason or a couple of straggler votes or because we don't have the majority or something, it's frustrating. But we don't give up on government entirely. We just kind of, all right, well, that's the rules. We got to operate within these confines. But the Republicans, like, if you stack up the amount of just L's lately, it's fucking incredible. Like, and it's not going to get better. Trump's going to lose. Some of these folks are going to lose their shit. They just arrested 3 dudes who were going to go kill migrants at the border for terroristic threats, who were going to be part of this fucking convoy. Luckily, they never hooked up with it. But had they...
Yeah, day before yesterday, Paul Fay, they arrested that dude. He had gotten a hold of the North Carolina Patriot Party, was going to go down with them. He had been searching buildings down there in Eagle Pass to shoot human beings. I mean, that's what he was going down there for. They weren't going to arrest him. They were using him for information because he was part of this network. And they had him on selling an unlicensed suppressor. They had him, but they were letting him go. They were leaving that fish out there so they could find the rest of the damn school. And they couldn't.
Yeah.
Because this crazy bastard was telling federal agents, I'm going to the border to shoot me some Mexican people.
Yeah. And he was setting up like a sniper's nest. He was just like checking out places where he could just kill people from a distance. And if you don't think, by the way, with all this like fucking anti-migrant talk, that there aren't like 3 or 4 serial killers that are like, that's in my pond anyways, as far as what I like to kill, that aren't just trolling that area for victims. Picking up hitchhikers and migrants and that kind of stuff, just taking advantage of the fact that nobody's going to miss these fucking people, and just piggybacking on the dehumanizing that these motherfuckers are doing. You got another thing coming, and I think here I'll show you. For those that don't know, this is a picture. This is Paul Fay, and he looks like exactly what you think he would look like. That's the dude. So he was going to set up a sniper's nest to shoot migrants coming across the border, just for being here. Women, children, no distinguishing difference between them. They were all an invading force.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I mean, and he just believed what that shit that Putin put out, man.
Yep.
He just believed it, and he was going to act on it.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, and for all the people on the right that are like, we got 2 tiers of justice and they're always letting these murderous people out of jail and these carjackers, they're just releasing them in DC and blah, blah, blah. Texas released this motherfucker. He's scheduled to show up in court for his like preliminary hearing and his plea. And he's out till then though. And he's facing 10 years in jail and $250,000. That motherfucker's got a gun and he knows where the holes in the fence are. And he could go over the fucking other side of it and either die in a shootout or just fucking live on the Mexican side of the border, killing migrants for the fun of it for years before anybody did anything.
This guy was going to kill people anyway. People anyways. That's why they arrested him. They didn't want to arrest him. They wanted to leave him out there gathering intelligence. They had to arrest him. He is armed to the freaking teeth. He has told them he has stashes of weapons that they haven't found all of them. They haven't. Yeah. This guy's life is over.
Yeah.
I mean, he's watching these January 6 people go to jail for 6 years, 16 years, shit like that. And they let him go.
Yeah.
They let him walk.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
It's super weird. And I'm all for the idea that anybody who's committed nonviolent crimes and and the standard for nonviolent crime should be self-evident. Anybody who's committed a nonviolent crime should have a chance at rehabilitation, parole, and that kind of stuff. But if you get to the point where your assault was clearly attempted murder, they just pled you down to assault to something, but everybody knows that you pled down to assault to save everybody the fucking trial and the money of the trial, that the budget for running a trial on a person who commits attempted murder, understand that person was trying to murder someone and he failed. And it is a lot of he's, by the way, but it's occasional, it's 60-40 he to female in that regard. But if you tried and you failed, you should go to jail for trying for the murder, because you were just unsuccessful pulling it off. It's the same thing with the insurrection. The insurrection, everybody's like, it wasn't an insurrection. You're right. It was a failed insurrection. But these fuckers gave it the old college try, and they should go to jail accordingly, as if they had participated, if they'd have gotten their wish, if they'd have gotten a hold of Pence, or they'd gotten a hold of Nancy Pelosi, and they had that fucking gallows outside, and they did to them what they said they were going to do to them if they got close to them, or if they'd gotten their hands on one of AOC's staffers or something like that. Jesus Christ, people would have tore them to pieces. And so if you're a part of that, you should be treated accordingly, not based on the fact that you weren't successful, but you fucking tried. And half the ones that are in jail, well, all of them, all the ones that are still in jail are the ones who said, I'll try again, fuck you, to the judge. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're out. They got an ankle monitor or nothing at all. Personal recognizance. They literally, the only difference between them and the person who's still in jail is that they bullshitted the judge. They're like, I won't do it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they won't. It's just we're giving them the fucking benefit of the doubt. And there's got to be a line. There has to be at some point where you're like, all right, violent crime and nonviolent crime are very distinctly different. And if you're committing 5 nonviolent crimes, then we got to deal with you. If you're just if you're one of these mass shoplifters and it's part of an organized thing or whatever, you got to go to jail for a long time because you're fucking with people's livelihoods, small business, people just trying to make a living, people with no fucking overhead.
You're too disruptive.
Yeah, you've given up your third, fourth, and fifth chance. But the minute you use a gun or violence in the committing of a crime, we got to hang on to you until time for your trial. Sorry. And if the problem is these trials take too long, then America needs, everybody who cares about this, the length of time, needs to put forward some sort of tax where we can add more judges, add more prosecutors, add more civil defense lawyers, all that, and public defenders. I mean, that's what you got to do.
I tell you, I catch a lot of hell now
for budget reasons. Letting this motherfucker walk around, who was going to set up a sniper's nest and shoot Mexicans because he thought he could, and it was like his mission in life. The idea that this dude could just like walk around after admitting to this on an open wire, talking, bragging about it, saying it to the fucking judge when he was initially arrested, is not, giving criminals a chance at rehabilitation. It is simply a total disregard for human life.
Agree, 100%. And I catch a lot of hell for this, Hal. Yeah. We've due to the American exceptionalism propaganda that we were all raised with, people have this belief in rights and the Constitution, right? That there's some sort of innate genius to them. Therefore, don't fuck with them. They're all good, folks. That ain't the case.
Yeah,
things change. And when your country is seeing people that are fed so much misinformation that they've lost touch with reality, but they are armed to the frickin' teeth, you need to change your rights. You need to adjust that volume for a while.
Yeah,
to where you can deal with this problem, where you can deal with this problem and then put it back.
Right. Well, even for those adjusting it for those fucking people. I mean, we looked at the Republicans, trying to allow people who've been, charged with domestic violence. They're allowed to keep their fucking guns. The people who, are found to be mentally unstable or suicidal or homicidal even, or, who are able to keep their guns. You can dial that back temporarily, but it's this weird kind of, the biggest opposition to it is this tyranny of the government idea that the Republicans fed for a very long time. You got to be able to defend yourself against the tyranny of the government. That's what defend yourself against tyrants and kings, and that's sacrosanct in the United States. You got to be ability to fight back. Okay, first of all, if you're doing that, you're going to be killing cops and soldiers. Let's just be abundantly clear. That's who you're talking about, and you have more ways to adjudicate your problems with the federal and state government in this country than you have on any other earth, including England, the Netherlands, Canada. You have more rights in that regard to that are defended on your behalf by the state itself than any other country on the planet. So the idea that and you're going to need, like Biden says, you're going to need an F-16 if you think you're going to take on the U.S. government, dumb fuck. That's the other part of it. But the idea that the Republicans are like fighting for the right of dangerous human beings to retain their weapons because of this fantasy that they have, that the government's going to declare MAGA crazy, that they're going to declare it a mental illness. This is why Reagan got rid of all the mental institutions, because there was this paranoia that was coming up in the Republican side that they're gonna just call conservatives are going to be called crazy because they believe in God, and that's it's a fantasy, and therefore they need to be institutionalized. We can't have rules where we can institutionalize somebody against their will because the state has adjudicated that they are insane, without them committing a direct crime. So, which is just ridiculous.
Because what's insane about the crazy shit we believe, right?
Right, exactly. Right. Well, and the thing is that they're gonna use the fact that we have genuinely crazy people out there, and we're gonna have to get them off the street as a backdoor slippery slope to get to us. The same way that if I can't have assault weapons, they're gonna eventually take away my handgun or my shotgun, and that belief that ultimately this paranoia about the tyranny of government, that the tyrants are coming one day, right, is what keeps these assholes armed to the teeth. The problem is the tyrant ain't coming. And so eventually these fuckers become the tyrant. Right now, you and I have more to fear from the tyranny of our neighbor who has a gun and just decides today's the fucking day, clack, clack, right? And walks into his office or a bank or the fucking school nearby or whatever the shit and has just decided, I'm sick of waiting. It's my way or the highway. And these motherfuckers got to die so they know I mean business. And that's the tyrant we're dealing with. That's the actual tyranny in the American system right now. And the people who are aiding and abetting the tyrants are the Republicans who say there can be no rules on what kind of gun you can have. There's no rule on who can have a gun. Even felons should be able to own guns, all this kind of shit.
Well, it's stupid, Hal. It's just stupid. I could you give me 5 guys with pickup trucks and trucker chains, and Trump takes over and he tries to implement fascism. I'll shut this fucker down in 2 days.
Right.
2 days. Because I know where the railroad lines are out in the middle of the woods where nobody can see me ripping up railroad lines, and you won't get a train through there. Yep. I know where the pipelines are. I know what to damage on a pipeline where it ain't easy to fix. Mm-hmm. I will do more without a gun in my hand and will not be a target. I'll just be a good old boy driving around with my pickup truck. And in my toolbox, I got enough trucker chain that I can get 50 feet out in the woods. I'll rip some shit up that'll shut this place down in 2 days.
Right.
2 fucking days. I promise you. Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid, people. Educate yourselves. Yeah. Educate yourselves. If you are really afraid of tyranny, which I am with the 2025 project, I am. I do not believe that if the Republicans seize power in this next election, we are going to have another free and fair election in my lifetime. I don't. Right. I know what to do, and I will be educating people on what to do to make sure that this doesn't exist. Right. Because folks, I guarantee you, there was cold weather here and we ran out of fuel for just a couple days. This place went to a madhouse. People were brawling in the gas stations and shit like that. You don't need an AR-15 to fight this government. In fact, you're just making yourself a target.
Well, that's exactly it too. That a lot of these folks are, they have this kind of rudimentary dumb fuck 1776 idea that they're going to take up arms, and maybe that ultimately was the bait and switch of it. You got the right to bear arms and you can keep that shit. But quite frankly, a well-regulated militia, A, will know who has them, and B, if you start to gather too many of those guys together, we're going to know it because of the size of your campfire back then, but the size of your Twitter fire now. And like the idea that you're going to operate kind of under the fucking radar and be anything more than a Timothy McVeigh, effectively a domestic terrorist who's just there to hurt people, ends up killing more kids than anybody else and blows up a fucking bureaucratic building in Oklahoma City. You know, you're not, this ain't, you're not getting anywhere.
People don't realize that shit. He murdered kids. Children. It was a daycare that he parked his bus under.
That's right. That's right. And so the idea that, that this is going to work its way out in, the interesting thing is I don't believe the 2025 project will actually come true for a couple reasons. One is Trump doesn't have the votes and enough people are leaving him behind. But there's a civil war, metaphorically, civil war brewing in the Republican Party. And they've been dealing with this forever. That's why they keep, like all the right-wingers on media, and you see it all the time, I'm sure, are talking about the uniparty and the deep state and rhinos all the time, more so than they're talking about their fellow conservatives, or they've got to align with their fellow conservatives or build bridges with their fellow conservatives. They're doing none of that shit. They can't circle the wagons because they're so fucking paranoid.
Yeah.
And
I keep telling these people, you don't want to go there. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all talk. Y'all say stupid shit because you think you're badasses.
Whoops. Where'd he go? I see him. I mean, I hear you. Do we lose you? Nope. There you go.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
That's all right. But, hopefully you'll come back in a second. Yeah. There you go.
That's why I tell these Republicans, man. That's why I tell them, you don't want this. You don't. Yeah. I guarantee you there's a bunch of auto workers that know more about fabrication and what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep. Meanwhile, we'll end on a happy note because we went a little bit over, but I love you, Texas Paul, and thanks for being on. I appreciate it. Check out realtexaspaul.com and, of course, follow him on all of his socials. You can find links to it at that site. It's the easiest way to go. We'll end on this little, happy note right now. The current tally that Trump is facing at minimum, is $400 million, 83.3, and then 370. So 430, somewhere along there, depending on the fluctuation of it. I personally believe after Engoron's memos last week and his stuff about the perjury, Alan Weisselberg's perjury in the other court, we're looking at $1 billion. So that
easy because there's 9% interest, dude. 9% interest on everything.
Oh, and it's all ill-gotten gains, all of it. And if you look at what Trump says his buildings are worth, you got to go by what he says these things. I could sell these things for this. All right, motherfucker, then do it. Because if it's worth that much and you got it all by cheating, then you're done, son. So we're looking at there's no way it's less than 500. And I bet you we're easing towards $1 billion, to $1.2 billion in the initial thing. And if they try to get it undone, that just means he'll shave off. They'll be able to, on appeal, shave it to 800 million. And he doesn't even have 300 to cover all this shit, even with the properties he owns in New York, because they're all commercial real estate, which has taken a giant shit since COVID.
And Alan Weisselberg has to be the stupidest man on the face of this planet.
Jesus Christ. Well, I mean,
just the stupidest man on the face of this planet. I mean, he's confessed. Why would you lie at that point?
Yeah.
You got your get out of jail free card, Tal.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if I was ever in Alan Weisselberg's position, I would tell them about when I was in the 3rd grade, I was jaywalking at my elementary school.
Well, that's the requirement.
I stole bubble gum down at the convenience store when I was a kid. I would tell them everything I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a get out of jail free card for everything.
Yeah.
Why lie?
Well, and the only reason I can think of is because whatever Trump has on him or whatever they've got pocketed away someplace or wherever these fucking Cayman Islands accounts are that Weisselberg set up for him or for himself or whatever these things, he thinks he can keep those hidden. And if he has to admit all of it, then his nest egg and his escape hatch and his fucking golden parachute or whatever he set up is gone. That's the only reason. It's the only reason it makes sense, right? And that if he gives up Trump, Trump's going to go, he's the one that told me to hide his money in the Caymans, because Trump would do that. And Trump would Trump would then turn on him, and Trump's got arguably more fuck off leverage in theory than Weisselberg does. So Weisselberg knows he'll be an easy sacrificial lamb for Trump, who throws everybody under the fucking bus. Shit, the fact that he made Eric sign all the bad documents, which is why Eric had to plead the fifth. He didn't do it to Ivanka and Don.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Boy, is that some fatherly love or what? Son, sign this.
You're the one I can afford to lose. And so Eric and Don Sr. pled the fifth the same number of times. Don Jr. didn't. Neither did Ivanka, because neither one of them were involved in the shitty deals. They didn't sign the paperwork. He made Eric sign the paperwork because he's like, this is the son I don't give a shit about. Fucking hell. And then Eric's been the one by his side during all this shit, while fucking Don Jr.'s coked up, shooting elk with like Joe Rogan people, like in fucking Wyoming or whatever, gacked out of his fucking brain. So anyways, I think that's the piece of good news in this regard. And I want to thank you for being here. Appreciate it. What's your show schedule currently?
Still doing Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Central.
There you go. Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. Central. Be sure to check out Texas Paul. Go to TexasPaul.com, realTexasPaul.com for all your all the links and all
Always
that kind of stuff.
Always a pleasure, Hal.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I appreciate you being on. We'll I'm sure we'll talk about more of this, but Jesus Christ, I look forward to just threading back and forth with you as this fucking Tucker Carlson thing continues to unravel and all this bullshit starts. So thank you, brother. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Texas Paul. Give it up for him. Texas Paul. All right. Texas Paul. Yeah. And thank you guys a ton. I will see you guys later on this afternoon. I went over, so I'm going to bug off. And then I've still got other fucking study to do, as I always do. And it's just, and I don't want to turn this into like another Midwestern goodbye, but hit that like on your way out. Love you guys. See you later this afternoon. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Valerie. Thanks to all the people on Facebook for the likes. Thank you, YouTube folks, for the likes. Thank you, Triva, for the super chat. Thank you, Dan, for the cup of coffee and for becoming a member, being a member for 26 months. Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, Dingo. Roderick, thank you as well. Hit that like on your way out the door, and we will see you later this afternoon. All right.